Hi and welcome to my channel. I had a couple of ideas about videos I could make this week, and then something happened and it kind of made the decision for me. So this is a video about what you might do and how you might prepare for unexpected medical issues or injuries while you're traveling, especially alone in a foreign country. I know I look terrible, but I am actually fine. This is, I think, day 3 after my little injury, and I'm really grateful that it's not more than a couple of black eyes, because for the first couple of hours after I hit my head really hard, I was worried about a brain bleed or swelling. And I had a couple of friends checking on me all the time to make sure I didn't need to go to the hospital. But what happened was I was walking towards the back door, taking the dogs outside, and they were excited about that. And I got tripped up on 𝐕𝐤𝐬𝐿, and I was already in forward motion, you know, like you are when you're walking. And I think he stepped on my back shoe, the back part of my shoe, so I couldn't move my leg forward. He's a big guy. And I just hit the ground really hard and really fast. There's no memory of it. It's just, I heard myself give a involuntary scream as I went down, and then I was cradling my head, because it's funny how your brain tells your hands to go to the most significant injury right away. And I just prayed and I said out loud, please don't let me be hurt. Please don't let this be a serious injury, because, you know, that could change the rest of my life. And I just held it for a moment. The dogs stayed away. They knew something big had happened, because they normally, if I was on the ground, they'd be jumping on me and sniffing me and acting goofy. But they stayed away, and I just carefully got up, and my balance seemed fine, but I could feel the swelling on my head. So I went to a mirror, and it was bad. I've never hit my head as hard as that, not even close. I assessed myself. My pupils looked fine. I didn't seem to have any confusion. My senses were working properly. I didn't have any balance problems, and I did not lose consciousness. So these are all really good things. I immediately texted a friend and asked her if she could check on me every 30 minutes and to see if there's going to be any changes. In case you haven't heard of it, there's a, I hope, relatively rare thing that can happen with a head injury, and that is, it's called talk and die. I'm sorry, but that's what it's called. And it's, you get a head injury, and then you walk around and you talk and you're normal and you're lucid, everything seems fine. And then within a few hours you could die, because what you didn't know while you were walking and talking is that there may have been a slow bleed in your brain or under the dura mater of your, covering your brain, so that pressure was building or the clot was building, and pretty soon it could really hurt you or kill you. So I was worried about that. So I also talked to my landlady, who's right next door, and she was so awesome. She said, I will take you to the hospital at the sign of any change. And I told her what to look for. And she was wonderful. She hugged me and she said, we're in this together. And oh, she made me cry. So sweet and so nice. And I just felt so taken care of by both of these friends. I felt shaky for the first couple of hours after the accident, but I knew I was experiencing a lot of adrenaline in my system. I'm going to blame that for my heightened emotional state. A head injury alone in Mexico, not optimal. I've got 2 friends checking though on me. I will go to the hospital with any changes. I'm just a big baby about it, because I'm a big baby. I've never hit my head that hard in my life, not even close. But I did not lose consciousness. It's not bleeding, at least not outwardly, and I seem to be still making sense, so hopefully there's no bleeding on the inside of the brain. So I think it's been almost 5 hours, and if I had a subdural hematoma or brain swelling, maybe I would have had an effect by now, but I feel okay. I look like a character from Star Wars, Star Trek, Klingon. And now it's the next day, and the massive bump is traveling down my face. Thanks, gravity. And it looks like I'm gonna have a massive black eye. as the swelling is moving down. Sheesh. I decided right after I fell that if either of these friends had shown the slightest hesitation for any reason, I would have called my driver, Adrian, to come and get me and take me to the hospital right now. If I was really hurt, it might not show up for a few hours and I needed to be watched. If I got confused or passed out without support, that would not be good. But I felt a lot of trust for these two friends, and they both checked on me and assessed my mental problems regularly. Just kidding, there were no mental problems. I had read a post by someone about a month before on a local message board who had to go to the hospital and was not happy with the treatment that he got there. A lot of comments below his post indicated that people just don't go to the hospital alone here. You need, they said, someone to go with you to prevent bad things. I had this in my mind when I took the trip to Morelia Airport a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned it to my driver, Adrian. It's not a large area here, and Adrian immediately knew about the post I was talking about. And I said, I would have hired someone like you if I had no family or friends around, meaning I'd have him go with me to the hospital. Adrian agreed and said that would be a good idea. Not being fluent in Spanish yet, I would think it's very important to have someone who could translate medical speak, if nothing else. You don't want any miscommunications in the hospital. So because I had those two friends looking out for me and I didn't have any symptoms of any problems, I did not seek to go to the hospital. If I had any doubt about my friends taking care of me, I would have seen if Adrian was available. The other good thing about that is that he's been to my house and he knows where I live. It's not always easy to find. And he knows other drivers in case he was out of town. Adrian has a stellar reputation and I think I can trust him. I have reason to know that if something goes wrong, he will make it a priority to see that his customers are taken care of. Obviously, I'm very happy that I don't seem to have any lasting neurological or physical damage beyond my face. But it got me to wondering, what if things had been worse, or God forbid, a lot worse? How can you be prepared for something like that if you're traveling alone in another country, or even if you're not alone? How can you be more prepared to handle something like that? I should make it clear that this is not an educational video and I am not offering legal, financial, or medical advice. I'm simply thinking out loud. I'm just trying to get a handle on being better prepared for unforeseen circumstances coming up. And please, if you have any ideas or resources, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to know. No one wants to go down this line of thinking in their mind, and I know I certainly never did, and I never bothered to until now. But if something unforeseen was to happen, I think it's really important to be able to control what's going on around you, even if you can't speak for yourself. One of the worst things I can imagine happening would be to have an injury and be unconscious in the hospital for an extended period of time. If you were in the hospital for a week or two, like with a big fracture or something, and you were still conscious, obviously you could still control your finances, communicate with your family, and take care of your animals and household. But if you were in a coma, everything would be a lot different. You may have wondered if you should call your embassy or consulate if you get hurt or injured in Mexico or another foreign country. And they welcome you to do that. You can call and they will help you notify your family. They can help you find medical care if you need to find it. And they will even help you shuffle funds from the United States down to Mexico if you're an American citizen. But if you're looking for help beyond that, there's no guarantee, and they say they will not help you pay for any medical expenses. So if I was unconscious in the hospital for a while, for any length of time, I would want a trusted family member to have access to my bank account. I would want them to try to assess how long I'm going to be unconscious, obviously, if possible, pay my rent for a couple of months, pay any hospital expenses, and also pay any dog expenses. Because beyond actually dying, taking care of my animals is one of the highest concerns. My landlady asked for emergency contact information when I first moved in, and I'm really glad that she did. She didn't have to use it, but if she did, she would know who to call. My family might be very far away, but I would want them involved if things really got serious medically. Like I said, my dogs are a top concern, and luckily I have two friends here in Mexico who say they would take care of my dogs if I ever got into trouble, and I have no reason to doubt them. But the real important variable in this equation is time. If you're going to be unconscious or helpless for months at a time, that's a little bit different than a couple of weeks. I could never ask any friend or family member to make a permanent commitment to my dogs if something should happen to me. So where does that leave my dogs? Honestly, I don't have an answer. If I was in the United States, it might be the same thing as if I'm in Mexico. If there was no one to take my dogs and I was incapacitated, they might be orphan dogs and go to either a rescue or be on the street, God forbid. I don't have an answer to this question. If you have any suggestions or any ideas about orphan dogs, if something were to happen to you, please let me know. Now we're in the direction of talking about your will and your wishes if you are incapacitated and couldn't speak for yourself. I'm not a lawyer and I don't know how it works, but I'm going to look into putting my wishes down on paper so my family and friends know exactly what to do if things should go wrong with me. And all these communication strategies, whether it's notifying your friends and family, having your family member control your finances, or who's going to take care of your dogs, these are all important considerations, but they're useless if they're buried in a desk somewhere. So I'm going to make a simple one-page communication and keep it out in the open where someone could find it to at least let them know the basics of what I would want to have done if I got in a serious accident. The question of money in medical care is important, of course. And I can say that I would be much more comfortable going to the hospital here in Mexico than I would in the United States, because in the US, it would most likely bankrupt me. If you were in the hospital for a few days and you needed recovery time at home, I believe it's pretty easy to hire someone who's trained to help you at home. And the costs for things like x-rays, medications, even surgery are astoundingly less than they are in the United States. I don't have any facts and figures to give you, but I do know of 2 recent visits to the medical establishment here that are informative. One is my friend Jess, who had a badly twisted ankle, and she was really lucky it wasn't a broken bone. You can read about her writings in Mexico right here. She's an amazing writer. But the bottom line is that for medical care, x-rays, a cab ride, and medications, she paid $52. The other is a man I don't know. He just wrote about his visit to the hospital. Apparently he had to have some kind of serious surgery. He spent 3 days in the hospital, paid for anesthesia, the surgery, and the 3 days in the hospital, plus medications, and the whole thing was less than $2,600 US. I realize these are anecdotal stories, but I thought it was interesting to provide some reference here locally. The man who had the surgery said he was quite pleased with the hospital. It was super clean and very professional. All of these issues and possibilities bring up more questions like, what are the legalities of Mexico when it comes to making medical decisions? Or would there be any issue with a family member talking to and working with insurance companies if you were unconscious? Or have you thought about and made decisions about your care if you can't speak for yourself? So much to learn. I'll be talking to some family members about what to do if they get an emergency call about me, how to get a hold of some of my money, and who else to contact if that should happen. It's not a bad idea to write down your wishes if something catastrophic should happen. If you live in Mexico, these are also important issues to consider if you're just thinking about getting older in Mexico. As you get older, you may need help or care, and it's important to know what your options are here. Ultimately, we're all responsible for ourselves and the choices that we make, but you can't always do it alone. So I'm super happy and grateful that I have friends here who really stepped up and helped me when I really needed it.